thank you so much for joining. I guess quickly for the audience's benefit, in like 1 to 2 minutes, what would you describe it is that you do?
So I'm a designer. My degree is in business, but I taught myself how to design, graphic design. And then I started a creative agency called Grant, and we do branding, websites, packaging, anything design related for our clients. So yeah, we're a creative agency. That's the synopsis.
Beautiful. And based in Calgary, Alberta.
Based in Calgary, and then half our team is actually in Vancouver.
Oh, okay. Okay, very cool. Well, that is great. That is helpful. So we like to, break the ice with some rapid fire questions.
Oh, love it.
We find that helps. So, what's your favorite movie?
Oh God. Okay, I would love to choose something intellectual, but I'm not going to go that route because truly I'm like a big Marvel fan.
Okay.
So I'm probably going to say like Thor. That's so lame, but I love it.
First
That's
one?
like what I watch to relax. Specifically the first one. Yeah.
Yeah, I liked Ragnarok, but then I didn't really like Love and Thunder. Was that the last one?
Yeah, neither.
Yeah.
Miss.
Well, I'm glad you didn't say intellectual movie because Taylor and I definitely would not know what it was. We can go off that. What is your favorite podcast aside from this one? Obviously.
Ooh, yeah. Aside from this one, obviously.
Yeah.
Two Bobs is a like incredible marketing podcast. It's like probably one of the most valuable resources I've found, like in general, books, podcasts, anything.
Okay, that's good. Has there been a book that has impacted your life in a big way?
Honestly, I read like a ton of business books, so I would say like altogether, I've read all of the ones that everyone's read. There's like no one that sticks out that I'm like, that's the one that's changed the game. But I would say like I have a few like Stegmeister and Walsh. I don't know if you know them. They were like a big creative agency, and then they split up. But Stegmeister, who's like an incredible designer, he made this art book. It's like an amalgamation of all of his kind of like physical and printed artworks that he's made, and he's done a lot of like art installations. And it's I think I have it actually. Yes, I do. It's like the most beautiful book, and it's like a die cut book, and basically like every booklet is just so well thought out and so well made, and it really changed my perspective on our craft. And it feels like it gives me something to strive for, because I'm not in that realm yet, but that book was like, it was the one where I was like, why I want to do this.
Sorry, what was it called?
It's called Things I Have Learned. I'll find it.
Things I Have Learned.
I'll show you the front. Stephanie Stegmeister. This is like what the front cover looks like.
Okay.
And there's all these individual booklets. It's incredible. Yeah,
okay, so Things I've Learned. Amazing.
Yes.
If you could travel anywhere in the world right now, if you could warp there, where would you want to go for vacation, for fun stuff? I don't know.
Where would I go? I feel like I would go. This is so like stereotypical, but I would go to Japan. I feel like I just need like exposure to a different culture that's not in North America right now.
Yeah. I mean, that'd be good design inspo. That'd be cool.
Yes.
I went there last year. It was very cool. Yeah.
Okay, love it.
I recommend it. Yes. If you got a $20,000 grant right now, what would you do with it?
$20,000 grant. You know what? There's some smart things I should probably spend it on. But I'm not gonna answer that way.
Okay.
What I would do is like the sexiest, coolest, made from scratch, like print packaging campaign for our own firm to send out to potential clients. Like I would make like a custom chocolate bar, make like a custom foil wrapper. I would do like an incredible like letter pressed, foil stamped cardstock exterior, and then and send that to people. So I would do like a crazy campaign that shows off our like print and packaging capabilities.
Yeah. That's a great answer. Who is your dream client?
Midday Squares would be a dream client.
Oh, yeah?
They don't need us because they've already done the work that we do. but I would have loved to have done that work. We have a few clients on the roster right now, which I won't name, but they're like who would have been our dream clients. So
Okay. So
they're
you
like
could
coming
choose
in
to
the
do-
pipeline.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love it. Who's your nightmare client?
Oh God. I mean, anything political would be a nightmare client. Although
Yes.
like I have, you know, I have my thoughts, but I wouldn't
I
touch
don't
that with a
want
10-foot pole.
You don't want to get in there.
No, I don't want to get in there. Like a cigarette company, that would be like a nightmare client.
Yeah. Yes.
Anything that's like really not our jam, I would say. Or like oh, you know what? We actually had it. This is the nightmare client. We had a lead reach out, and I won't say what the product was, but it was a product for men, which is not a problem. Would love to work on a product for men. But the brand that they had was so misogynistic. And they wanted some packaging work. And it was like, when I went to the website, I was like, absolutely not. This is like, can't, no.
Yeah. So it came to you, you turn them down. That's good. How do you lock in for work? Like when you really got to get stuff done, what's the like routine?
It has to be like 5 a.m. and it has to be like coffee, tunes. No one can be awake. That's like the only way I can lock in is like the team's not awake.
Yeah.
My toddler's not awake. My partner is not in the house. That's like when I get my most intense work done is like 5 to 7.
And what kind of music are you putting on?
It honestly is so dependent on my mood. Like it could be like some like I don't know how to say this word, but like binaural beats.
Oh yes, I do
You
know
know,
those. Yeah.
like something that's like it can't be too interesting. Like it can't be something
Yes.
that I'm actually paying attention to. Or like some classical music. So it has to be something that's like soothing and stimulating at the same time.
Yes. Gotcha. And last question, how do you lock out when it's like, time to step away and, take a break?
Lately, this is such a weird turning point for me, but it's making food. Like
Yes.
I just recently started making butter from scratch, which is so weird. And it's like the only thing I do where I'm like headphones and listen to something and just make some like baking or make some food, make some like stuff that I would never have made in my life. But it's like the only thing that zones me out.
Why butter? Like, how did you get started with that? It's just a very
why
random...
butter? Good question, because I'm actually celiac, so I can't eat that much like I have to get like special bread and stuff. So it's not like I eat that much bread. Butter, I think it's just so simple. It's so easy to make and it's like satisfying. It's like, it's like it requires a lot of like pressure in your hands and you can do so much with it. You can add herbs, you can make it like sweet, you can make it savory, you can make it just plain salty butter and it just feels so like wholesome and usable. My partner eats like he has the same breakfast every day, which is just like toast, 4 eggs, and a shit ton of butter. So it's like I know it's gonna be eaten, I know it's gonna be used. It's just like a staple,
I've never thought of butter as being having so many varieties. I just know as a kid I loved eating that salted butter sticks.
Yeah.
But
I learned something. I didn't know there was different kinds of butter. I thought it was
flavored butter.
This is
a whole
now.
lifestyle.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. I mean, yeah, that's awesome. Well, that's the rapid fire. So now let's talk about real stuff. So where did you grow up, and did you have any entrepreneurs in your family that kind of inspired you to go down this path?
I grew up in Okotoks, just south of Calgary, and no, I didn't have there was no entrepreneurs in my family. I have some like extended family members that are I don't even know if they're entrepreneurial, to be honest, but they're kind of like they're successful people that do some really cool projects. But I think I don't know what I honestly have never really been able to articulate like why I've always started businesses. Like when I was 14, like I always had little businesses that I started. I had a tote bake business. Then I can't even remember what it was, but I won some kind of like entrepreneurial award in high school for something. I don't even know what it would have been, but it was like I just always every opportunity I had to sort of like make something my own, I did. Like I worked at a pizza shop, and like very quickly, I was like 16 and I started like taking over things in the pizza shop and like changing things and like optimizing things. It was just like from the get-go, I just always wanted to do it. And when I was always asked like what I wanted to do when I grew up, I would say CEO, and I don't even know if I knew what that meant. You know?
You're locked in.
Yeah, I don't know what it was.
Yeah. That's cool. I mean, so, and you said you studied business and then you taught yourself design. So I guess when you were taking business, and for context, both Taylor and I studied business as well, but so you were studying business, did you know you wanted to get into design? Because like business and creativity, like especially business school, there's not a lot of creativity in there. They're kind of jamming like accounting courses down your throat and stuff. So like, did you know that you wanted this creative outlet? You wanted to go into creative business, or what was that process like to like finding your way there?
No, I didn't know. I have a very like zigzaggy past, but I went to business school at U of C first, and then failed like epically, and was on academic probation after like a year, and left and was like, I'm a loser. I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. And then I traveled for a while, worked, and just kind of like honestly, like now looking back, it's like, oh, I was just trying out a bunch of stuff to see what worked for me, but I felt like such a loser at the time. It was like I had no direction. And I think like I never knew that like creativity was so important to me. But when I was young, I used to just draw all the time, and I used to always draw people. I don't know why. But I thought I wanted to be a fashion designer because that felt like those two, like drawing people, and I would draw like, you know, outfits and stuff when I was little. And I think I never really put the together that I just liked creating stuff. It was like, oh, well, of course I want to be a fashion designer because I draw people with outfits. So I think, you know, I just didn't know that it was a job, like graphic design. And when I went to business school the second time, I came back and I could kind of like regrown my confidence and was like, no, I had started a business and I was like, I am good at this. Like I like owning a business, but that business was like a natural therapy business. I made bath bombs essentially, but I studied aromatherapy when I lived in Australia and made like therapeutic bath bombs for different ailments. And when I came back, I pitched my business in a pitch competition at MRU, and I won 10 grand. And with that money, I hired a branding agency to design my packaging. And when I saw that process, it was like everything clicked together. It was like, oh, yes, it all made sense. And somewhere in there, I was a musician for a while, and like I hated being on stage, but I played like full time essentially for 3 years. But I think it was like, oh, I like creating music, and I like the physicality of like turning it into something. But it just never really clicked for me until I saw people designing the packaging and like designing my brand. And I was like, oh, that's a job. That's the job I want to do. And I was working in robotics at the time as well. And then it was all over the place. And the robotics company asked me to design their packaging. And I didn't know what I was doing. I'd never even opened Illustrator. And then through that process, I was like, oh, this is it. It was like I had tried every door, and then it just all sort of like came to a head and was like, this is it. This is the thing. And then I quit everything, dissolved my business, finished school, quit the robotics company, and then I just started teaching myself to design. And it was like I was obsessed.
Was robotics company in Calgary?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was a company called Easy Robot. They were like, it was a personal, I'm just trying to think of what their like tagline was. I can't remember, but it was like personal robotics. So you could teach yourself how to build a robot. So it was like, you know, you would like build it with different servos, and then you would program the movements and stuff. So actually in the end, I was teaching workshops to show people like how to program the robots, which is wild because I was not technical at all. Like when I started working there, I barely knew how to use a computer. So it was like next level.
So, okay. So you were in Australia and you were a musician in Australia?
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
And then you also started a bath bomb company.
Yeah. When I came back.
Australia. Oh, when you came back.
Yeah.
So you started that, and then you were also working for a robot company while going to school.
Yeah, I was going to school full time, and actually I like condensed my degree into a shorter time period. So I was doing that, and I was working full time, and I had my bath bomb business. So every night after I was done studying, I would like be in my tiny little kitchen, sanitizing everything and then making my product and slicing it and packaging it. And then 6 a.m. on Saturdays and Sundays, I would pack up my car with like my 10 by 10 tent and all of my products and just like drive down to the farmer's market, set it all up, sell it, put it all away, do the same thing the next day. And then, yeah, it was intense.
It was just like a one-man company? Like it was just you?
It was just me, although I had lots of friends that would come. Like I pay them and they'd come and sell in the booth with me.
How much Adderall were you on at this time?
Oh my god,
like an awful lot.
Yeah, I wish. Had I been ballsy enough to do that, it probably would have helped a lot.
Yeah, no, I think about that myself too. I'm just too scared, but like I was like, wow, what could I be? If,
right?
Anyways, so you're doing the okay. So and then like, how big was this like aromatherapy company? Like, was it paying your bills or like was it a big business?
No, it was my first lesson in so many ways, but no, I mean I had worked at Lush when I was younger, so I had like a sense of the industry and stuff, and then I ended up managing the Lush store, and I loved it. I loved working at Lush; it was the best. But I
smells good in the stores. Like, when you walk in,
Oh yeah, I'm still obsessed. But yeah, so I made these bath bombs, and like I think I originally sold them for like $4 a bath bomb, which is not enough. And then I figured out my actual margins and was like, oh, right. And they were super labor intensive to make. I made like it's a long story. They were like layered and they were all made with natural ingredients and colors. And I had like an icing on top that was made of cocoa butter and it was like very intense. And I would usually sell, like, I want to say like, I would sell somewhere between like 150 and like maybe a good day would be like $350 at the farmer's market.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking like, this is so much effort for so little. But I think in my head, I was like, one day I can make this scale. And then I was basically like encouraged to be part of all these entrepreneurship competitions at the university, even though the people around me in those competitions were like doing real things. Like they were doing big businesses, like incredibly innovative ideas, and I was making bath bombs. So I just didn't ever feel like it was a smart enough idea to actually pursue. But I remember like I got basically there was such a disconnect between my brand and how I, ended up having all the packaging and everything else, and like what the actual benefit of the product was. It was like a cake slice shaped bath bomb with all these layers, so it looked really cute. But I think, I branded it as like this natural, like therapeutic product, but like the way the product looked and like the actual benefit did not align at all. So it was one of those things where like I sold in a bunch of stores in Alberta, and people would see it on shelf and be like, oh, that's so cute. And then they would take it home and like expect it to do something cool in the bath because it was like a cute product, and it would just dissipate into nothing, like barely even color the water. And that's like the expectations of like what a cake shaped bath bomb does and something natural just didn't connect. So I think like there was never really a way that I would have had to like rejig everything about it. And I didn't love it enough to do that.
Yeah.
So it was so labor intensive. I used to have, my arms were jacked, like just from making these bath bombs all day and like packaging them. And it took like a ton of effort to kind of like compress them. And I was doing it all by hand.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, maybe you could do like a workout class that makes bath bombs and then you have two businesses. But yes, so you're back at school, you're doing the robotics, you saw the process of coming up with a brand and you said, this is for me, this is what I want to do. So when you finished school, did you like go right into starting your own design studio?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't call it a design studio. I think I just started freelance designing, which is sort of the same thing, but basically like my ex-husband who I was with at the time, he was like, basically didn't really believe that I would make make it a thing. Because I think he had seen me do so many kind of like zigs and zags. He was probably like, okay, this is another one of those things that she's going to pursue and like not really put everything into. But I just felt so differently about it. And I remember like, I was like, okay, I need a space to work out of. And I went to this co-working space called the Commons in Calgary and toured, and then ended up getting a desk. It was like $500 a month and I had no revenue, but I just like needed a space to work at. And my ex-husband was like, I don't think that's a good idea. Like, you shouldn't be spending money before you even have like clients. But of course, like I didn't listen to him, and I got the desk, and basically like right away I had clients. I just started telling people like I'm designing, and I was so cheap and not good that I think people just needed like people who were like, oh, I need something tomorrow. Like I was their person. So they would just come to me and I would just crush it out, even though I literally had no training, no idea what I was doing. But like I would spend 30 hours on a 1 hour project just to like make it perfect. Or I mean, I guess like at the time it was perfect. Now I can't even like think about what that looks like. But I think I just got it done. And then it's kind of like it happened quite quickly. It was like my brain was ready for it. And I just cleared my schedule and was like, this is what I'm doing now. And it all just kind of flowed.
Do you think you could have done it if you hadn't jumped around with all your other ideas that were maybe? So one thing that I often wonder is like a lot of people, they're either like plan upfront everything and don't take the leap, or they just jump into everything but maybe don't follow through on it. It sounds like maybe you were in the latter camp up until you found this. What was it that made this stick? Like I know you mentioned like it just something about it clicked, but was there like something about those other businesses other than they were just difficult? Like why did you see those ones as being so tough to kind of stick with?
I think that I didn't love them enough. So I think I didn't love the thing enough that was a business. And I think, it was like the right business for me. It was like, I remember like the first job I got, I would wake up at 7 excited to work. And that was something I had never experienced. Like it felt like it was so hard to get up in the morning. And like I would just like drag myself to my jobs and be like, ugh. Like, and every Sunday I felt so sad. It was like, I just didn't want to work. And then when I did this, it was like, it didn't take me very long to be like, oh no, this is it. Like I could work till 10 or 2 in the morning and I felt satisfied. Like it didn't feel hard. It just felt like it was like, no matter how hard it actually was, it didn't feel hard. And I think that was like, it just, once that happened, because I had so many like zigs and zags, I think I was so clear. And I had been really craving that clarity. Like I just really wanted to know what my thing was. And I think the other thing too is like when I was a musician, like I was pretty like naturally talented, I would say. I was definitely not like as good as many people or as good as I could have been. But I think I didn't have to try very hard to be good. And there were lots of people around me that were not like technically very good, or even like, in my very like linear lens at the time, I probably wouldn't have considered them like my favorite artists, but they put in so much effort and energy, and they would go out on stage no matter if there was like 2 people or 200 and just like give it their all. And they were always writing, they were always recording. And I remember just thinking like, that's so weird to me. Like, how could you put your all into that if you're not better than people around you? And now I just think about it so differently, because now, like, 15 years later, some of those same people are playing and they're incredible. And like, it's their full-time jobs. It is their vocation. And it's like, I see now, I'm like, oh, it's not about like being the best. It's about like the long run. Like in the end, you might be the best, or you might just be like good enough that you can make a living, and that's fine. And I feel like I just needed to see that happen, I think. And then for myself, it was like, I don't actually have to be the best. Now I want to be the best. Now I want to get like much, much better. And my drive to be better than I am is very strong. But in the beginning, it was like, I just need to start it and I'll get there. And because I had seen people in music make that journey, I think I just knew that was what it would take to get there. And I found the thing that was good enough for me that I could stick with it.
Interesting. That's a really good point. So it's like, it sounds like it's more about like finding that thing that is going to like keep you coming back because you love
Yeah.
it, as opposed to just like what you have like the natural inclination towards like right away.
Yes, absolutely. And like for even now, like I'm 12 years in, and if I had free weekends, which I don't, I would design. Like if I was solo and I didn't have a toddler who I want to spend time with, I would just design. Like if someone
Yeah.
was like, "Hey, can you design this logo for me today?" I would love to do that.
Yeah. So do you find like, so you have that passion for designing, but now you're obviously like the CEO of a company. Do you find that like running a company pulls you away from doing the work you want to do as opposed to perhaps when you were just freelancing by yourself?
Big time.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I barely designed at all.
Yeah. And how did like, does that suck? Like, how do you, how do you feel?
It kind of
Yeah.
sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of sucks, but it's also like it feels kind of temporary almost.
Yeah.
Like I can sort of see the like growth trajectory for us, and I'm like, yeah, we're not at the point where I can hire like an operations manager and an HR person and a finance person, and it's sort of like the people on my team are so good that it's like they're better than me. So it's kind of like, for me to jump in and take over, it I also love business. So I can just see how economically it doesn't make sense for me to like,
Yeah.
hire a bunch of those people and then me be the designer. It's not, it just doesn't make sense. And I would rather do good work than me do the work. So
Yeah.
I think like long term, I want to get back to doing creative direction, which still probably doesn't mean I'm going to be in Illustrator, but that fills up my bucket. Is just like creatively directing the projects, and I do that now. But I think I want to do that more and more and more, and less admin, less biz dev. Like I think that type of stuff long term, someone else will do, but we're not there yet. So I'm kind of in that interim phase where I'm having to do all of that stuff, and it means that I'm not in Illustrator.
So when you're jumping around, like, are you an advocate of fake it till you make it, or is it more like you're just so curious in all these different areas and you just start like how do you start learning all these different areas? Because you just kind of jump in and then figure it out by researching on the internet and talking to people. Like, what's your approach for learning so many new skills?
Like in terms of what I'm doing now with like
Just in like your whole past, like you've jumped from all these different areas. A lot of them you didn't have formal training for. And I think that's something that a lot of people get stuck on. They're like, oh, I'm not like credentialed in XYZ. And maybe they don't even try, or they don't even think that they're capable of it. Like it seems like that wasn't even something that really crossed your mind, given how
it
often you
definitely
jumped around.
was, but I feel like it's interesting because I had lots of imposter syndrome all the time. And I think for whatever reason, when I was young, I think I just knew that I would always feel that way and I needed to do the thing anyway. Like take the action, know that you're always going to feel that way. So I guess it's kind of fake it till you make it, but it's more like I never positioned myself as like I don't know, as like much more advanced than I was, I don't think. Maybe I didn't even have the knowledge of what that looked like. I think I just like the robotics company. They presented in my university class and I was just so interested in what they were doing. And I found the presentation so compelling that I went and talked to them afterwards, which was not like me. Like I was like, I wouldn't say shy, but very introverted. So it was like, I don't want to talk to people really. So, but I went up and talked to them and ended up being like, well, if you ever need like a marketing coordinator or something, I would love to work with you guys. And they hired me a couple days later. They were like, I went down to their office, and I feel like I've always been very lucky, but I also very much make my own luck. Like, I got that job. It taught me so much. And I went in and I was like, I can work for free. Like, I just want to learn. I was just always so curious. And I think it always came back to me. Even stuff that I did for free, it was like, learning on someone else's dime is the best way to learn. And so like working at that company and having no idea what I was doing, like I was so hungry, and I think they saw that. And so I was just rewarded for being curious, and I tried everything. And I think that's the thing is, even if it wasn't something I liked, I really wasn't done with it until I learned as much as I could.
And again, you're jumping into all these new areas. Like you said, you had some imposter syndrome and things like that. But And even by the sounds of design, you had the awareness to say that, like, okay, I'm not great at it now, but I'm going to, think about the long term. I want to get great. But was there anything that, like, I don't know, 'cause I can see with that process, like, it's hard to stay like mentally upbeat and like, positive and keep going. Was there like anything that like kind of helped you? Because like you're trying all these big, bold, ambitious things, which is, very admirable. And I think a lot of people have, the dream of doing stuff, but then it's like it's easy to just sort of like, I don't know, like you look at the road and get down a little bit and maybe you don't follow through. So was there anything that helped you to keep at it and keep pushing?
I mean, I definitely think in some ways I had support from people in my life, but I'm like kind of second guessing me saying that because I think everyone in my life collectively was like, oh, eye roll, it's like one more thing that Aislinn's trying. Maybe, I don't know. That's just my perception. I think I just always like really trusted my capacity to figure shit out. And
Yeah.
because I had experienced it so many times, it was like, I just trusted that I would get there. And I do think like to some extent, the things that I tried, I was so hungry that I eventually did get good at it. Like music was something that was like, I just like when I picked up a guitar for the first time, it wasn't hard for me to learn. And like when I started like teaching myself kind of how to sing, like if that wasn't hard for me either. And I think I could have been way better than I was, but it was just, I think I am really addicted to like teaching myself things. I get such a high from like not knowing anything and then learning it. And so like teaching myself guitar the first time, like the first song I learned on guitar was Tears in Heaven, which is like not an easy song to learn. Like I never go like, oh, let's start here like a little bit and then go a little bit up and then learn a little bit more. It's like I go from like 0 to hero, like that, like I just skip a bunch of steps. And in the end, now like I'm 12 years into this, I'm having to like go back and sort of like fill in the gaps of the things that I skipped. But I think in terms of my jumping around, it helped me to just be like, the dopamine is at the end. So I would just go right there.
Yeah. It's like that marshmallow study.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that marshmallow study's been debunked. I think, unfortunately, my
Oh,
entire
really?
worldview was placed around it, and I recently saw a thing they can't reproduce
all my
it.
credibility on the podcast is
it really haunted me because I had really based a lot of my worldview and understanding of reality based on it. But one thing that your business does is it deals a lot with like obviously people trying to bring an idea to fruition. That could startups, creatives, people launching a new product line. Are there common mistakes you see people make that you deal with over and over again that you're like, hey, there's something that keeps happening repeatedly here? Just curious if you've seen that.
Yeah, now at Grant, it's not so much of a thing. I think we're dealing with people that are farther along in their journey. But my first agency that I started with a business partner, I remember the kind of the tail end of that. I did a spreadsheet of all the people we've worked with and then, checked to see if they're still in business and like kind of picked apart all the people we'd worked with because we'd worked with a ton of startups and over 50% of the people that we worked with had failed. And I really, when I look back, there's definitely like common factors. I think number one is not testing your idea. I think people like me, they have an idea and they just want to go right to like launching it. And, maybe they have some cash in the bank and they spend all of their cash making the thing look good, but they haven't done any of the legwork to test or pivot. So I think like the inclination to start something fast is actually quite good. And I think it's something people need to harness on their MVP. Like, what's the first version of this that I can get out and test for very cheap and learn all the lessons and do the pivots before I invest in branding and packaging and, like a website, like go to a farmer's market, pitch. And I think that like, unless you have millions of dollars in investment and you can hire the right people to like progress the idea correctly, testing the idea first is so important. And startup land, especially at the price point that we were at, it's like they're not like fully funded startups. They're people that have like a bunch of savings and they just want to hit it hard and fast. So I think people not testing is like a big piece of why they failed. And then I also feel like budgeting is a big problem for new founders. Like for example, like if you have $50,000 in entirety to start this business, don't spend $50,000 on branding and a website even. Like that's not going to get you there. If anything, I would be like, type out something in Microsoft Word, take a screenshot, that's your logo. And then now let's do some testing. Let's invest in more of like the marketing side of things, doing some like even A/B ad testing, hire like an insights firm to do research, I would spend it more on that stuff and then wait until you have kind of like V2 of your product or service and then brand it.
Yeah. I think something that like people get into is like, it needs to be consistent. I need to create this brand and build it throughout, and they get really focused on that. What's your view on like just like consistency in general? And sometimes like people pivot their product line. Do you see it as like a problem that is better to avoid, or are you like, this is just part of the process, we should just embrace that we're going to pivot at some time and that's okay?
I think it's just part of the process. I think pivoting is very natural and normal. I think what's very hard is when you have to pivot something really foundational, like your brand name, if you're like 5, 6, 7 years in and you didn't put a lot of thought into your name and now you have to rename it. That's a pretty big problem, to be honest. And like we've had to rename lots of companies. So I would say like, that kind of thought process is tricky. And I think too, like people launching with too many SKUs or too many ideas is also like really detrimental. I would say like launch with one SKU, learn the lessons, make the tweaks. Like especially if it's a CPG product, obviously, like make the tweaks and then, invest in branding. The most successful launches we've had with clients have been where they have like a really good idea and they might have like their full, like, okay, we're going to launch like 50 products they might know, but right away we're going to launch 2 and that's all they get. And then they make a really big deal. They market the shit out of like what the next new fun seasonal launch is or whatever that looks like. People can't absorb too much from a new company. So I feel like it's really smart to just like be super laser focused on like that first thing that you're doing. And don't worry about the rest for a while.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. So you use specifically like a CPG business, and like I know in your portfolio you had you worked with the company Higgy's Pets. So like I guess one thing I would wonder is like, how do you do that testing, especially for like a CPG business? Like if we're talking like a pet food company, for example, like, because I can imagine you come up with like a formula, you're like, okay, this is a better, dog food, but it's like, how are you testing it? Like, it's like, I know you mentioned farmers market, but is there like, you come up with a product and you go to a bunch of stores and show them? Do you hire an insights firm? Like, what have you seen as the most effective way to try and figure out that like product fit?
I feel like what you just described is the scrappiest and smartest way to get immediate feedback is to literally take your product, go to the people that you want to sell it to and be like, I'm just starting this. Can I get some feedback? Can you taste this or can you give this to your dog or whatever? And like, what would be your barrier in bringing us on? Make the adjustments and then go to them later. And even in my business, like companies that we've wanted to work with, any like cold calling I've done, which probably I can count on both of my hands, is like the amount of times I've cold called a company that I want to work with, is I don't approach it like, we are the shit. Like, you need to work with us. We're going to change your life. I've never done that. It's like, I really love what you do. I'm working on this thing. Can I get your feedback? Like, what would you expect from someone like us? And I think like entrepreneurs are very keen to help each other. So I've just always approached it like, these are like potential partners and not like from a selling perspective.
Yeah.
And that's worked out really well for me because maybe someone hasn't worked with me for 5 years, but in the end, like those people and I usually end up working together.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's like the hard work. Like it's kind of more fun to just like, I got this idea and I'm gonna like do the branding because that's fun in my like silo. And then you go to launch, it's like, oh wait, no one wants this. So it is like
Yeah.
tough to do that stuff.
Well, and I think that's like maybe one, I didn't really realize until you just said that, but maybe that's one trait that I had to my advantage is I love feedback. Like I'm obsessed with getting feedback. I really don't take it personally. Like, you know, the few times where it's happened where we've presented something that clients don't like, it's really not a big deal for me. I'm like, ooh, tell me more, you know, like let's get some more insight here. And then I'll get all of it. And I'm more jazzed than ever. Like I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. I'm more jazzed to just like do round 2. And
Yeah.
I think that that's such an advantage. And if you're someone who's like ego is easily bruised, or, you know, you feel rejected when someone doesn't like your stuff, then it's good. You're not going to succeed, because like that's the whole point, is pivoting, learning, redoing stuff again and again and again and again and again. And I think if you're especially a product-based business, it's like that is so central to the way you're going to build a successful brand, is getting feedback and implementing the right pieces, not listening to everyone, but like filtering it and being like, ooh, that feels like that's a repeated thing I've heard. I need to work on that. So I feel like that's like a key piece of what I've seen in successful entrepreneurs we've worked with, is like their ability to take feedback.
On your website, you have you describe art-led branding. I'm just curious, like that's like how is it different from like a traditional approach, and like what does that mean? What makes it unique?
You know, it's hard to say because I've never worked in an agency, so I don't know if other agencies do this. But for us, like when we work on a full brand identity, there's a period where we literally will like set up a bunch of like, I guess our initial approach is like digging into the history and sort of like getting some inspiration of like potential places we could go. And then we'll bring like ink and paper into the studio, or like watercolors, or like a bunch of clay, or whatever, and smudge things around. And none of us are fine artists, but I think what that does is like, I've seen this happen a lot on our team, where they'll make something like that, we'll scan it, bring it into Illustrator, do some image tracing refinement, and then that ends up being like a key part of the brand's pattern or graphics. And so for us, we've just always liked doing that, but now I do kind of see it as an advantage, because, you know, we haven't really run into the problem of like AI taking our jobs, but that's pretty hard to replicate. Like making something from your hands that is now like an ownable piece of a brand, like that could be copied. Like someone could take that pattern and, you know, put it in Illustrator and remake it. But I feel like for the integrity of a client to feel like they have a brand that's fully custom, an analog component feels very important to me.
Yeah, I'm kind of getting the sense that like in this, like we're in the information age, we've got, like you mentioned, AI, like we're getting bombarded with just like information. You open up your phone, information, you're just everywhere. And it feels like that emotional connection with a brand is becoming more important. Kind of like those visuals are sort of nonverbal. You pick them up by learning them. You can't really define it as easily on like a set of written values. Would you agree with that? Or like how do you approach this? How do you measure like success of like kind of these visuals? Or is it just kind of like client feedback and we see how it goes? There's no really way to measure it.
Yeah, we don't really have a way to measure it. There is, but we don't have that data. I think there's, especially now, there's like almost like an instinct to revert back to brands making you feel something. It felt like, you know, like it was like that for a while, and then there was a bunch of corporations that lost people's trust, and so, you know, they couldn't trust the like gimmicky taglines and like what they said it was going to do. Now people are very brand centric and they need to trust, and I feel like there's basic things that you can do to make people trust you, aka do what you say you're going to do, don't overpromise, don't use gimmicky language. But then there's like that underneath of like making someone feel something, and that is basically our job, is like, how do we connect something that's authentic for why they started the business or why they started the brand, and how do you implement that in a visual way? And I feel like right now we're doing that, you know, in a visual identity or in packaging, but like long term, I really see integrating sensory into our work, like more like video, maybe it's animation in 3D, but like sound and smells and like music. And when we get to work with people on a more experiential level, like brand activations, I feel like that's going to really open up our work, because people are seeking in-person experiences more than ever, because they're their phones. They're tired of Instagram. They're tired of all the ads. Engagement is really low. And I think people are really craving, what that connection with a brand that feels actually meaningful and impactful, and not just like a guise to sell them things. So that like loyalty piece feels really important. And that's the work I'm really excited to do. Like, we're such a small team that we haven't really been able to like implement that yet, but I feel like that's the next level for us, is like digging much deeper into the in-person part of branding.
Is there a brand that you think do a really good job with that?
I mean, there's lots of like really cool brand activations that I've seen. I mean, I feel like I can't really think of any off the top of my head. Like, Apple's an incredible company for like in-person incredible experiences. But I think what's missing for me in some of the activations I've seen is that like full sensory piece. Like, what does it actually, like, even on a small level, like we have a linen bedding company that we work with. And this is a very small example, but like if you walk into their storefront, the like music they're playing and the essential oils they're diffusing and the linen and like the lighting and like everything just feels like so cohesive. And like it's I think it's stuff like that people don't expect. Or even like we went to this cocktail bar. My team was in Toronto a couple weeks ago, and we went into this cocktail bar that I've never heard of. I think it was called like 416 or something. And we walked in, and there was like the music that was playing was this like really sexy type of jazz that I've never heard before. It was just like visceral. It was like a very beady jazz, and their cocktails were wildly expensive, but they were incredible. And there was like a woman in like an A-frame dress, just like sipping a martini, like a customer. But I walked in and I was like, I get it. Like, I get this brand right away. It's like their sign is so understated, you would probably never even know they're there. But now I'm like, every time I go to Toronto, I will go to that bar. And like the chef came out to our table and was like, hey, I'm making this really interesting thing today. Like, it's gluten-free. Like, do you want to try it? And he came out and like brought us this like custom dish that wasn't even on the menu. And it feels like there's I think those, maybe they haven't even like defined that in their brand, but if you have things like that feel like essential to what you do, and you can define them, that's like when you're unstoppable, is creating those pieces of your brand that are like core to who you are, that's different. Like if your values are quality, like no one cares, don't make your value quality.
And sorry, that was called 4016. Was the?
I think it's 416 or something.
Okay, I'll check that out. But that's very cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think how you're describing it is I get what you're saying. It's like the whole picture, the whole cohesive vibe that goes behind it.
Yeah. And we have this client in Toronto. They're a bakery called Noctua, and the founder Daniel is like this just cool person. Like he's got like, he has these like kind of like Japanese inspired like wide-legged jeans, and he's just in like cool glasses, and he always like smells so good, and like his the bakery is incredible. Like their products are so good, and like you just walk in and he's always there having like an espresso, and the music that's playing is like, again, like just so different than what you've heard, like, and so curated. And there's all these like underground bands that he's always sending us in our emails, like, oh, have you heard these guys? Have you heard these guys? And I keep telling him, like, this is such a central piece to your brand that now we're making some packaging with him that's called Best Served with Sound. And there's a QR code to like a playlist made by Daniel, because his music sense is just so next level. And it's like all of those pieces together create a very interesting and like something that can be replicated. Like when he opens his many locations, it's like, that's like the kind of music we play, and like this is the kind of smells we have, and like this is the vibe. And I feel like that's how you give people a sense of your brand, is by like really owning those like unique parts of you and just like leaning in.
Yeah.
And that's all really hard to do if you're online only. So advantage to some of the physical spaces, which is, I was interested to ask, because we've had that pop up with a few guests, is just people are craving that in-person experience again. So yeah, it's really interesting hear your perspective there. What advice would you have, say someone's looking, they've got an idea. We've talked through like test your idea first before you go too deep in branding. We've talked about thinking through the whole experience. Is there anything else that, like, say you were starting maybe your butter company, you're starting from ground zero. What's the first steps you take? What advice would you give to someone in that stage?
I think wow, this is getting me excited to start a butter company. So thank you so much, Taylor. Now I'm going to have to quit what I'm doing. No, I think, well, first of all, I would like really perfect a recipe. Like I would test it to death. And then I would honestly, like how I would budget my available money is that personally, like I would make like I would make like 50 really beautiful packages of like the butter, like tasting notes. I would add in some like printed material, like how you compare them. And then I would hand deliver that to the key people making decisions in grocery stores. Be like, this is my product. I'm just learning. Like, can you tell me what you think? And then I would just keep following up with those people, and I wouldn't, with no expectation of like getting in stores, I would just get feedback right from the people who make decisions and don't waste my time with anyone else. And then I would be like, okay, once we get the feedback, implement it, follow up, send them like updated versions, updated formulas, updated recipes. Yeah, I think I would just do a lot more in person, fewer connections, but in person. Like don't send an email, go directly to that person. And I think in my experience, like the very few people that I have like made connections with, like in a cold connection type of way, it's like, it's not about quantity. It's, quality connections, and those people that are going to be your champions. That's what you need when you start a brand, is like create those, like that obsessive champion first. Don't go for like everyone and try and target everything. I would start very small and very specific and very niche, and just know that like you're planting the seeds for something that's going to last a long time.
Amazing. So other than your butter company, we like to ask what's next for you. What's your next plans for on your entrepreneurial journey here?
You know what is so funny is like I said that I'm joking, because my biggest learning lesson is don't succumb to like the squirrel brain and the shiny object syndrome. Is like just keep doing what you're doing. Don't complicate it. And I that's been I think like I wouldn't consider myself successful, but I think I have a business that's still running. So it's like I've done something right. And if it's anything, it's just that. It's like just stick with it. Don't start a million ideas. Like stick the course, tweak things. And I think anytime in my past when I've tried to like, oh, I'm going to start this crazy website company that does like websites in 24 hours and I'm going to brand it this, and like then you spend all your energy in that. It's just a distraction. And I think like I found the thing I love doing, and I just want to do this and just only do this. So I feel like for me, it's just staying focused. That's all that I want.
Amazing. So where can people find you? We want to give you a chance to promote your company.
Thank you for asking. We are grant.com. That's our website. You can find us on Instagram at we.r.grant, and LinkedIn. We're big LinkedIn people as well. And that's it. We've like scrapped all other social media because we don't have time.
I love it. Well, yes, thank you so much for coming on. This was extremely informative and helpful. And it's been great to, I don't know, you have a very interesting journey that led a lot of different places, and it's very cool to hear about that. So it was really inspiring. So we definitely appreciate the time.
Oh, thank you guys so much.